Yo, what's up guys? This is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty. Welcome back to the channel. Many thanks to all of you who have supported me on Patreon. If you want access to exclusive and complete versions of the stories, join me on Patreon. I already have dozens of stories available there. You can even send fanfic requests. The link is in the description. Enjoy the video. Peace. Konoha Gohan Buu exposed by Edo Tensei. 1 GB. Chapter 1. Impure World Reincarnation. 137th. Chapter 1. Impure World Reincarnation. Next. Teacher, are you still resisting in vain? Orochimaru chuckled and formed hand seals with both hands. The hand seals were complex and ancient, exuding an ominous aura that made people's heart palpitate. Since you miss the past so much, then I will let you meet some old friends. When Sarutobi Hiruzen saw the opening move of the hand seal, his old pupils shrank suddenly and his face showed unprecedented horror and anger. That technique, could it be impossible? That technique should be a forbidden technique. Where did you learn it from? His voice trembled with excitement. He recognized it was the forbidden ninjutsu developed by second Hokage Senzu Tobirama, Impure World Reincarnation. An evil ninjutsu that desecrates the dead, summons the souls of the dead back to the world and controls them. Orochimaru showed a grim smile, just like the last grim smile of Lion Majesty before catching its prey. He. Teacher, it seems you haven't forgotten it. That's right, it's the technique you were thinking of, forbidden technique, Impure World Reincarnation. His eyes were full of pride and madness. I spent a lot of effort to study this technique. After all, it's so exciting to be able to summon those legendary strong men to use for me. A-hole. Sarutobi Hiruzen was shaking with anger. How dare you use such an evil ninjutsu to desecrate the dead souls? Aren't you afraid of being punished by God for doing this? Divine punishment. Orochimaru seemed to have heard a huge joke. Teacher, you are still so superstitious. Power is everything. As long as you can get powerful power, the so-called morality and taboos, what do they matter? As he spoke, he continued to make hand seals, and an increasingly rich and cold chakra emanated from his body. In order to complete this technique, a small price is required. Orochimaru glanced at the Anbu members outside the barrier who were attacking the barrier in vain, and a trace of disdain flashed in his eyes. He had already prepared the sacrifices. They were ninjas from other villages that he had captured in advance. He controlled them with secret techniques and only waited to use them as containers of souls and media for the technique. As Orochimaru formed his last seal, he suddenly pressed his hands to the ground. Impure World Reincarnation. Instantly the entire roof began to shake violently. Complex and strange patterns appeared on the ground, emitting a faint dark light. Then in the center of the pattern, accompanied by a teeth grinding, creaking sound, 2 heavy coffins slowly rose from under the ground. The 2 coffins were completely black, exuding a strong smell of death and an ominous premonition. On the lids of the coffins, 2 eye-catching characters were engraved respectively, first and second. Sarutobi Hiruzen looked at the 2 coffins rising slowly and the shocking words on them, and his heart instantly sank to the bottom. The blood on his face disappeared, replaced by a paleness that was almost desperate. He knew who Orochimaru wanted to summon. Chu represents the first Hokage Senju Hashirama, who founded Konoha and is known as the God of Ninja. Chu represents the first Hokage's younger brother, the second Hokage, Senju Tobirama, who also made outstanding contributions to the development of Konoha village and developed countless powerful ninjutsu. They were all teachers and seniors that Sarutobi Hiruzen once respected extremely. How could this happen? Sarutobi Hiruzen muttered to himself, his body swaying slightly, almost unable to stand steadily. He never dreamed that one day he would have to face these 2 legendary Hokage. Moreover, he was controlled by the enemy in this way. Is Konoha village really facing an unprecedented crisis? Outside the barrier, although Kakashi Gai and other Jonin could not see the specific situation inside the barrier, they could clearly feel the 2 extremely terrifying and powerful suffocating chakra waves that suddenly erupted from the barrier. The texture of the chakra made these battle-hardened Jonin feel a palpitation. This chakra, could it be? Kakashi's Sharingan stared at the barrier, and an ominous premonition arose in his heart. What a terrible feeling of oppression. Gai's face lost its usual playfulness and showed an unprecedented solemnity. They attacked the 4 purple flame formation frantically, and various ninjutsu rained down on the barrier wall, but they could only cause ripples, and the barrier itself remained motionless. They were extremely anxious, but they were powerless and could only watch the situation in the barrier develop in the worst direction. Orochimaru looked at Sarutobi Hiruzen's distraught appearance, and the smile on his face became more and more smug and ferocious. He was looking forward to the first Hokage and the second Hokage coming out of the coffin and using their unparalleled power to completely destroy Sarutobi Hiruzen's last will to resist and completely destroy Konoha, the village that he hated. Teacher, enjoy it. This is the grand closing performance I prepared for you. Orochimaru opened his arms as if embracing the upcoming victory. The coffin rose very slowly, and every inch it rose was like a huge rock pressing on Sarutobi Hiruzen's heart. He had already prepared for the worst. Even if it cost him his life, he would never let Shodai and Nadaime be controlled by this evil disciple to hurt the people of Konoha. He tightly grasped the Vajra Rui stick, his eyes became firm again, and he was ready to face an unprecedented life and death battle which might be the last fight of his life. However, just when everyone thought that the two coffins would open as expected and walk out the first generation and second Hokage controlled by impure world reincarnation, something strange happened suddenly. Click. The coffin lids rubbed against the coffin bodies, making a slight sound, and then under the watchful eyes of everyone, at least the extreme attention of Orochimaru and Sarutobi Hiruzen, the lids of the two coffins slowly and almost simultaneously slid aside. The smug smile on Orochimaru's face froze instantly. Sarutobi Hiruzen was also stunned, his tense nerves relaxed for a moment because of this sudden change. The expected tall figure of first Hokage Senju Hashirama and the stern face of second Hokage Senju Tobirama did not appear. The coffin is empty. No, not completely empty. At the bottom of the coffin, with the word "Chu" engraved on it, there lay a letter made of some strange shimmering ancient material. At the seal of the letter there seemed to be an extremely weak, almost invisible energy thread slowly floating towards Orochimaru, as if being attracted by some kind of aura on him. At the bottom of the coffin, with the word "Chu" carved on it, there was also a letter made of similar material lying quietly. However, the faint energy threads emitted from this letter pointed in the direction of Sarutobi Hiruzen, as if they had some strange resonance with the Hokage chakra in his body. This sudden change made the smile on Orochimaru's face completely freeze, as if he was wearing a frozen mask. His golden snake pupils suddenly shrank, staring at the two empty coffins and the two letters at the bottom of the coffins, his eyes filled with incredible astonishment, confusion, and a trace of imperceptible doubt. What's going on? For the first time, Orochimaru's voice showed obvious fluctuations. It was no longer the leisurely hoarseness but a sharp surprise. My impure world reincarnation can't fail. There are no problems with the sacrifice and the spell. Why is it empty? Comments. Chapter 2. The first generation second Hokage was Eden. 3/137. Chapter 2. The first generation second Hokage was Eden. Sarutobi Hiruzen was also completely stunned. He had originally prepared for a tragic battle to the death with his former mentors and had even begun to think about how to use his knowledge of the two Hokage's ninjutsu to deal with them in order to minimize their damage. But the scene before him was completely beyond his comprehension. In the coffin of impure world reincarnation there are no summoned souls, only two mysterious letters. What is going on? The atmosphere within the barrier, which had become tense and filled with despair and murder due to the activation of the reanimation jutsu, fell into an eerie, suffocating silence due to the appearance of the two empty coffins and two mysterious letters. Orochimaru stared at the two letters, especially the one with energy flowing to him. He could feel that the letter seemed to be calling him, or in other words, attracting something in his body. He wanted to go forward and check, but an inexplicable intuition made him a little wary of this sudden change. Sarutobi Hiruzen also looked at the letter with energy flowing to him, and his heart was full of doubts. He could feel that the letter had a weak connection with his chakra as a Hokage, as if there was some important information waiting for him to open. The wind on the roof seemed to have stopped flowing because of the strange silence. Only the purple flame barrier of the four purple flame formation was still burning silently, isolating this small world from the outside world and witnessing this incredible scene. The sudden appearance of two empty coffins and the two strange letters lying quietly at the bottom of the coffins in the four purple flame formation were like a huge rock thrown into a calm lake, stirring up indescribable waves of shock in the hearts of Orochimaru and Sarutobi Hiruzen. The originally tense atmosphere of life and death fell into a suffocating silence because of this extraordinary scene. Sarutobi Hiruzen's eyes were fixed on the letter that seemed to have some kind of faint resonance with him, and the energy thread was slowly drifting towards him. His chest was heaving violently and his heart was beating wildly under his ribs as if it wanted to break free and jump out of his body. He could feel that this letter was extraordinary and the information it contained might subvert all his previous cognition. His hands were trembling slightly because of the fierce battle just now and the indescribable tension at the moment. He stretched out his hand and the letter with a faint glow and a strange material seemed to have its own will floating lightly like the last reluctant fallen leaf in autumn slowly and accurately fell into his palm. The feeling in his hand was not cold paper nor hard metal or wood but a kind of, an indescribable warmth and antiquity. It was like some kind of jade that had been precipitated for billions of years or like the skin of some unknown creature with a faint life-like temperature but also extremely tough. Sarutobi Hiruzen had never experienced this kind of touch in his life. His heartbeat was beating like a drum in his chest again and again heavy and rapid so loud that he could almost hear it clearly. He took a deep breath trying to calm the waves in his heart but the ominous premonition from the unknown like an invisible vine tightly wrapped around his nerves making it impossible for him to really calm down. With his other hand he carefully opened the seal of the envelope with a solemnity that was almost pious and mixed with deep fear. There was no complicated sealing technique just a simple folding as if the owner of this letter did not bother to use any means to protect its contents or it was confident that no one could stop it from delivering the message. When the letter was fully unfolded Sarutobi Hiruzen's pupils suddenly shrank to the size of a needle tip. The words written on the letter were a language he had never seen before. The characters twisted and swirled and the strokes looked like the totems of some ancient civilization or like the trajectory of the stars in the universe full of indescribable mystery and unknown. Each character seemed to contain some kind of rules, some kind of power which made him feel dizzy and his mind was shaken when he saw it. However, the moment he stared at those strange words something even stranger happened. The words he didn't recognize at all but the content they carried were like a revelation or like someone whispering in his ear clearly and unquestionably reflected in his mind. Every word carried an absolute declaration hitting his heart hard and detonating deep in his soul. Senzu Hashirama and Senzu Tobarama have been eaten by Am Gohan Buu. Their souls cannot return. You do not need to look for them anymore. This is just a small compensation, not a token of respect. In just a few lines each word was like a huge hammer hitting Sarutobi Hiruzen's heart and deep in his soul. His mind was blank in an instant as if all his thoughts were shattered by these few words. Boom. A bolt from the blue. A true bolt from the blue is just this. Sarutobi Hiruzen's body swayed violently and he almost fell to the ground. The Vajra Rui stick in his hand fell on the tiles with a clang, making a sharp and crisp sound which was particularly clear in this deadly barrier. His face turned pale as paper in an instant without a trace of blood as if all the blood in his body had solidified at this moment. What? His lips trembled and he made a sound so weak that it was almost inaudible. Gohan Buu, who is this? Or, what is this? He searched all the knowledge in his mind from ancient legends to the secrets of various countries and had never heard of such a name. This name sounded so strange, so weird, not like the name of any known ninja or summoning beast. Eat it. The soul is eaten. This word, like the most vicious curse, the most terrifying nightmare, kept echoing and circling in his mind. He could not understand nor could he accept this fact. First Hokage Senzu Hashirama was known as the god of ninja, who pacified the troubled times and founded Konoha. His strength was unfathomable. Second Hokage Senzu Tobarama was also a powerful figure in the ninja world who developed countless powerful forbidden techniques including the impure world reincarnation in front of him. The souls of these two legendary Hokage were actually eaten by an unknown existence called Gohan Buu. How is this possible? This is simply a fantasy. How can a soul be eaten? This is beyond the scope of ninjutsu and beyond his understanding of all the power systems in this world. The soul cannot return. You do not need to search for it anymore. These words were like a cold knife ruthlessly cutting his heart. This meant that the souls of his two respected teachers, the two founders of Konoha, had completely and forever disappeared. Even the forbidden technique of impure world reincarnation which blasphemed the dead could not summon them back. Chapter 3 Me, Gohan Buu, 4/137. Chapter 3 Me, Gohan Buu. Rage like a volcanic eruption erupted from Sarutobi Hiruzen's heart. Rage against this Gohan Buu, anger at this blasphemous act. Shodai and Nadaime, they are the symbol of Konoha, the spiritual pillar of all Konoha shinobi. How could they be treated like this? But following the anger came a deeper feeling of powerlessness and fear. How terrifying would the strength of a being that could easily eat the souls of the first generation and second Hokage be? That was a realm that he couldn't even imagine or reach. Facing such a being, his so-called cage-level strength and so-called ninjutsu professor were simply as ridiculous as an ant. This is just a small compensation, not a token of respect. Compensation? What to compensate? What can compensate for the annihilation of the two Hokage's souls? This understated tone, as if it was just a trivial thing, made Sarutobi Hiruzen feel a chill in his bones. Just when he was extremely agitated and unable to control himself, something strange happened again. As the words, "No thanks," at the end of the letter finished echoing in his mind, a faint spatial ripple suddenly appeared in the empty air next to the letter paper in his hand. Then a small box the size of a palm, emitting faint but pure warm energy, appeared there out of thin air, floating quietly as if it had always been there. The box was made of a similar material to the envelope, neither gold nor jade, simple and mysterious, with no patterns on the surface but exuding an indescribable charm. The energy fluctuations it emitted, though weak, were extremely pure, carrying a kind of vigorous vitality that lifted people's spirits as if they were bathing in the sunshine of early spring, warm and comfortable. Sarutobi Hiruzen held the letter that seemed to weigh 1,000 pounds in his hand, staring blankly at the small box that appeared out of thin air and floated in front of him. His mind was in a mess, and all kinds of emotions were intertwined in his heart like a surging tide. Shock, anger, confusion, grief, and deep fear of the unknown, Gohan Buu, almost devoured his reason. What on earth was going on? What on earth had happened in this world that he didn't know about? Meanwhile, on the other side of the barrier, Orochimaru's reaction was equally filled with violent turmoil. When the letter pointed at him by the energy thread fell into his hands, his pale and slender fingers caught it with a nervous twitch. Different from the warmth that Sarutobi Hiruzen felt, the feeling of this letter in his hand was a little cold, as if he was holding a hibernating snake, which caused a layer of fine bumps on his skin but also had an inexplicable attraction. He couldn't wait to unfold the letter. It was written in the same strange language that he had never seen before, but the content was also imprinted directly on his mind. The immortality and power you seek are nothing more than what I can give you. This item may help you get a glimpse of true power, but don't be greedy. Unlike the obituary that Sarutobi Hiruzen received informing him of the bad news, the content of this letter is more like a condescending scrutiny, a judgment that is full of ridicule and provocation. The eternal life and power you seek are nothing compared to me. These words, like a sharp poisonous needle, pierced deeply into the deepest part of Orochimaru's heart, the place he was most proud of. Immortality. Power. This is the ultimate goal that Orochimaru has been pursuing all his life. For this he betrayed his master, defected from the village, and conducted countless forbidden human experiments at all costs. He thought that he was ahead of everyone in the pursuit of immortality and power, even surpassing his teacher Sarutobi Hiruzen and those so-called cage-level masters. But now Gohan Buu, who appeared out of nowhere, actually used such a contemptuous tone to dismiss his lifelong pursuit as nothing special. Orochimaru's face instantly turned livid, his golden snake pupils flashed with cold light and the corners of his mouth twitched uncontrollably. A rage of being despised and insulted burned in his chest. He wanted to roar, to refute, to find this ignorant Gohan Buu and let him see his true power. However, when he thought of the two empty coffins, the terrifying strength of the first generation and second Hokage, and the horrifying ending of their souls being eaten, the anger in his heart was like being poured over his head with a basin of ice water. It was instantly extinguished and was replaced by a kind of horror that made his whole body cold. A being that could easily eat the souls of first Hokage Senzu Hashirama and second Hokage Senzu Tobirama. His strength was far beyond his imagination. In his understanding, even a legendary figure like the Sage of Six Paths might not be able to do such an incredible thing. This item may help you get a glimpse of true power, but don't be greedy. These words were like a huge bait, firmly hooking Orochimaru's deepest desires. True power. Are the power he is pursuing, the ninjutsu he has mastered, and even the immortality technique he is proud of, not true power. What does this Gohan Buu mean by true power? Orochimaru's heart began to beat violently, not because of fear but because of an uncontrollable excitement and greed. He has been seeking more powerful power all his life and he will never let go of any opportunity that can make him stronger. This letter seemed to see through his deepest desires and every word hit his vital points accurately. This made him feel creepy as if all his secrets and ambitions were exposed nakedly in front of this unknown, Gohan Buu. Don't be greedy. This warning made him feel even more nervous. This, Gohan Buu, seemed to know Orochimaru's character very well. Next to the letter a small box also appeared out of thin air. This box was similar in size and material to the one in front of Sarutobi Hiruzen, but the energy fluctuations it emitted were completely different from the warmth emitted by Sarutobi's box. It carried a hint of coldness, a hint of primitive wild aura, as if it contained some more direct and violent power. Chapter 4 The Gift is Senzu Beans. 5/137. Chapter 4 The Gift is Senzu Beans. Orochimaru's expression was uncertain and unpredictable. Suspicion, greed, fear, excitement, confusion. All kinds of complex emotions intertwined and flickered in his golden snake eyes like rolling poisonous fog. For the first time he had a slight hesitation in the power system he had always believed in and the way to immortality he pursued. If there really existed a terrifying existence like Gohan Buu in this world who could easily eat the souls of the first generation and second Hokage, then was everything he was doing now really just nothing special, as the letter said. He stretched out his long tongue and licked his dry lips, his eyes flashing with desire for the unknown and ultimate greed for power. He must figure out this Gohan Buu, this real power. Time seemed to have frozen inside the barrier. Sarutobi Hiruzen and Orochimaru, the two destined master and apprentice, were now lost in their own thoughts and shock because of the two mysterious letters and two strange boxes that fell from the sky. The small box in front of Sarutobi Hiruzen, which radiated warm and pure energy, floated quietly for a moment before making a slight click sound. The lid of the box actually slowly opened by itself. Sarutobi Hiruzen's breathing stagnated and his eyes were fixed on the opened box. He didn't know what was inside. Was it some powerful ninja tool? Or some secret medicine that could turn the tide of the battle? Or something that he couldn't understand? As the lid of the box opened completely, the contents inside came into his sight. There were no magical weapons as imagined, nor any scrolls or secret books emitting powerful chakra fluctuations. There are only two things in the box. A green bean that looked ordinary and only the size of a fingernail lay quietly in the center of the box. The bean was emerald green like the finest jade, with a smooth and round surface, and exuded a strange refreshing fragrance. Just by smelling this fragrance, Sarutobi Hiruzen felt that his body, which was exhausted by the continuous fierce battles, seemed to have regained a bit of vitality and his spirit was lifted. Next to the green beans was a scroll made of the same ancient and strange material, tied lightly with an unknown silk thread. From the edge of the scroll some patterns could be vaguely seen. Sarutobi Hiruzen suppressed the turmoil in his heart, stretched out his still trembling hand and carefully picked up the green bean. The bean was slightly cool with a strange elasticity, and the fragrance was even stronger, as if it contained infinite vitality. He could clearly feel that this small bean contained an extremely pure and majestic life energy, the purity of which was far beyond any medical ninjutsu or medicine he knew. This was definitely an extraordinary product. He picked up the small scroll again, untied the silk thread and slowly unfolded it. The scrolls were not filled with the ninjutsu runes or barrier patterns that he was familiar with, but rather some extremely complex human meridian diagrams and some energy flow symbols that he had never seen before. The directions of those meridian diagrams were significantly different from the chakra meridian system known to ninjas, being more detailed and complex, as if depicting a deeper level of energy pathways in the human body. And those energy flow symbols were like keys that guided the way some unknown energy flowed through these special meridians. This system is completely different from the known chakra system. Sarutobi Hiruzen could vaguely sense that both the bean and the scroll contained an energy that was completely different from chakra, but equally powerful and even purer in some ways. He held the beans and the scroll carefully in his hands, his heart filled with unprecedented confusion and bewilderment. Who is this mysterious being who calls himself Gohan Buu? Why did he kill Shodai and Nadaime, and why did he leave such compensation? What is the purpose of this bean, this scroll that records an unknown energy system? Is this a gift of goodwill, or is there a deeper conspiracy? Countless questions flooded into his mind like a tide, making him a little overwhelmed for a moment. He forced himself to calm down. Now was not the time to delve into these things. No matter who this, Gohan Buu, was, no matter what shocking secrets were hidden behind the encounter between the first generation and the second Hokage, the current priority was still to resolve the enemy in front of them, Orochimaru, and protect the Konoha village that was in danger. Although his heart was shaken by this sudden change as if he had experienced a violent earthquake, Sarutobi Hiruzen was after all a Kage-level warrior who had been in charge of Konoha for decades and had experienced many battles. His willpower was far beyond that of ordinary ninjas. He took a deep breath which lingered in his chest for a few seconds before he exhaled slowly, as if he wanted to expel all the shock, doubt, grief, and fear in his heart along with this breath. When he opened his eyes again, although there was still deep sadness and confusion in those old eyes, what was more was the rekindled sharpness and determination. He understood that no matter whether this, Gohan Buu, was a god or a demon, no matter what incredible changes the first Hokage and the second Hokage had encountered, right now the biggest threat to Konoha village was still Orochimaru, who started this war, and those sound shinobi and sand shinobi who were wreaking havoc everywhere in the village. He must fight on. For Konoha, for the people who believed in him, and for the will of fire. Sarutobi Hiruzen carefully placed the mysterious green bean in the scroll that recorded the unknown energy system along with the letter that brought the bad news in his arms. He could feel that these things might play a vital role at some point in the future, but not now. After doing all this, he raised his head again, his eyes like lightning staring directly at Orochimaru, who was also uneasy not far away. Although his voice was a little hoarse due to the shock just now, his tone was full of unquestionable firmness and coldness. Orochimaru. He called out the name word by word as if pouring all his anger and determination into it. No matter what incredible things have happened, no matter how many secrets this world hides that we don't know, your crime of invading Konoha and killing your compatriots today is unforgivable. The moment the words fell, Sarutobi Hiruzen's old body burst out with powerful chakra fluctuations again. He held the Vajra Rui stick tightly in his hand again. Although his physical strength was greatly consumed, his eyes were sharper than ever before. He had made up his mind, even if it meant burning his last life, he would keep Orochimaru, the evil disciple, here completely. Chapter 5 Fight. 6/137. Chapter 5 Fight. Orochimaru was also awakened by the fierce fighting spirit that had re-emerged from Sarutobi Hiruzen. His golden snake eyes narrowed slightly and he temporarily pulled away from the shock and greed of Gohan Buu and the mysterious compensation. He glanced at Sarutobi Hiruzen, putting the small box and the letter into his arms, and a more subtle but more blazing light of greed flashed in his eyes. The compensation, left by an existence that can completely make the souls of the first Hokage and the second Hokage disappear, is absolutely inestimable. It may even contain the secret of immortality that he has always dreamed of, which transcends the existing cognitive system and a powerful force that is closer to reality. Orochimaru is determined to get the compensation in Sarutobi Hiruzen's hand. He stuck out his long tongue, licked his lips, and made a hissing sound like Lion Majesty spitting out tongue, and his signature evil smile reappeared on his face, but behind the smile there was a hint of fanaticism and possessiveness for unknown power that was not there before. He. Teacher, it seems that we have all encountered some unexpected surprises. His voice was hoarse and low with a hint of amusement. But do you think that just relying on these small changes can change your fate of death today? Before he finished speaking, Orochimaru suddenly jumped up. His attack was even more fierce and relentless than before. Countless Lion Majesties gushed out from his sleeves and mouth like a black tide and rushed towards Sarutobi Hiruzen. At the same time, the Kusanagi sword in his hand turned into a deadly cold light and pierced Sarutobi Hiruzen's heart. Not only does he want to kill Sarutobi Hiruzen, he also wants to take away the compensation in Sarutobi Hiruzen's arms. He has a strong premonition that the two compensations will be the key to his access to a higher level of power. Boom! A fierce battle broke out again on the roof. Only this time the mentality of both parties has undergone subtle but far-reaching changes because of the two mysterious letters and the two strange compensation boxes. Sarutobi Hiruzen fought to protect Konoha and to fulfill his duties as Hokage with grief and indignation for what happened to his two mentors and vigilance against unknown powerful enemies. On top of his original goal of destroying Konoha and killing his mentor, Orochimaru also had a strong desire for the unknown, real power. In his eyes the flame of possession burned even more fiercely than before. The tiles on the roof were shattered and splashed in pieces under the more violent chakra impact of the two men. The light of ninjutsu and the sound of the collision of weapons were more dense and harsher than before. The barrier of the four purple flame formations still faithfully performed its duties, completely isolating the death fight on the roof from the noise of the outside world. However, the air within the barrier seemed to become more distorted and full of uncertainty because of these two legacy that fell from the sky. Tiles flew everywhere and smoke filled the air in the four purple flame formation. The battle between Sarutobi Hiruzen and Orochimaru was briefly paused because of the two sudden mysterious letters and the strange compensation, and then broke out again in a more violent manner. Both sides knew that no matter what shocking secrets were hidden behind those letters and boxes, they had to get rid of each other first. Sarutobi Hiruzen kept the mysterious green bean and the scroll containing the unknown energy system close to his body and tightened his grip on the Vajra Rui staff. His old face was filled with a solemn expression because of the shock and anger just now, as well as the grief for the fate of his two mentors. But the fighting spirit in his eyes burned more vigorously, like a flame blown by the strong wind. He knew that he was shouldering the responsibility of protecting Konoha, and he must not fall here. Orochimaru, accept your fate, Sarutobi Hiruzen shouted angrily, and his old body burst out with a powerful force that did not match his age, and he took the initiative to attack. The Vajra Rui stick slashed through the air as he swung it, and with a force of 1,000 pounds it smashed down on Orochimaru's head. Orochimaru's eyes flashed with a mixture of greed and vigilance. He was determined to get the compensation in Sarutobi Hiruzen's arms. At the same time, he also knew that in order to get the compensation, he had to completely get rid of the old and immortal teacher in front of him. Teacher, it seems that you are very confident in yourself. Orochimaru laughed hoarsely, and his figure floated back like a ghost, easily avoiding the heavy blow of the Vajra Rui stick. At the same time, he quickly formed seals with both hands, and several thick lion majesties suddenly rushed out from his sleeves like black lightning, biting Sarutobi Hiruzen from all angles. Fire style. Phoenix fire technique. Sarutobi Hiruzen remained calm and blew out a series of small fireballs from his mouth, accurately hitting the attacking lion majesties. The flames collided with the snakes, making a hissing sound, and a disgusting burnt smell filled the air. Then, without stopping, Sarutobi Hiruzen formed seals with his hands again, Earth-style Earth Dragon Bullet. The ground shook violently, and a giant dragon made of mud roared out from the rubble, opened its huge mouth full of sharp rocks, and bit Orochimaru fiercely. Orochimaru snorted coldly without dodging or evading the Kusanagi sword in his hand, drew an arc in front of him, and the sharp sword energy spread out like a substance, actually splitting the Earth Dragon in half. Teacher, your old tricks are no longer useful to me. Orochimaru's tone was full of disdain. He knew Sarutobi Hiruzen's fighting style too well. He could predict what ninjutsu would come next for almost every opening move of Sarutobi. The battle instantly entered a white-hot stage. Both sides used all their skills, ninjutsu, taijutsu, and weapon fighting, and fiercely collided on the small roof. Although Sarutobi Hiruzen had the mysterious Senzu Beans and scrolls in his arms, he had no time to study what they were used for. He could only rely on his rich combat experience accumulated over decades and his indomitable will to fight Orochimaru. Orochimaru's attacks became more and more treacherous and fierce. His Kusanagi sword, which could cut through iron like mud, was like the fangs of a lion majesty, constantly looking for flaws in Sarutobi Hiruzen's defense, and each attack was aimed directly at the vital points. He summoned several huge pythons which coiled around the roof. Their cold snake eyes flashed with bloodthirsty light, cooperating with Orochimaru's attacks, constantly harassing and flanking Sarutobi Hiruzen. Chapter 6 Perception. 7/137. Chapter 6 Perception. Shadow Snake Hand. Orochimaru flicked his wrist, and dozens of tiny lion majesties sprang out from his sleeves like living ropes, wrapping around Sarutobi Hiruzen's limbs. Sarutobi Hiruzen's eyes focused and his body spun violently. His Vajra Rui staff danced into a whirlwind, knocking away all the attacking snakes. But his movements were obviously a little slower than before. The long and fierce battle was a huge drain on the elderly Sarutobi Hiruzen. Sweat beads appeared on his forehead and slid down the wrinkles on his cheeks. His breathing became heavier. The chakra in his body was rapidly draining away like a river bursting its banks. Teacher, your physical strength seems to be reaching its limit. Orochimaru keenly noticed Sarutobi Hiruzen's fatigue, and the smile on his face became more cruel. The Kusanagi sword in his hand attacked more fiercely, and the sword light flashed, forcing Sarutobi Hiruzen to retreat again and again. Puff! Unable to dodge in time, Sarutobi Hiruzen's left shoulder was cut by the Kusanagi sword, leaving a deep wound that could be seen to the bone, and blood instantly dyed his robe red. The severe pain made him groan and stagger. Now, Orochimaru's eyes flashed with coldness. He seized the opportunity and slapped out with his palm, hitting Sarutobi Hiruzen right in the chest. Ah! Sarutobi Hiruzen felt an irresistible force coming. His chest was churning, his throat was sweet, and a mouthful of blood spurted out, splashing on the broken tiles like a blooming blood-red plum blossom. His body flew backwards like a kite, with a broken string hit the barrier wall of the four purple flame formation heavily and then slid to the ground powerlessly. Cough! Cough! Sarutobi Hiruzen coughed violently, and every cough caused severe pain in his chest, and more blood flowed out from the corners of his mouth. He felt as if his internal organs had shifted, his eyes went dark, and his consciousness began to blur. Did he lose? No, we can't lose. The future of Konoha, the villagers who trusted him, and the mysteries left by the mysterious existence called Gohan Buu, all of this made it impossible for him to fall down in peace. He struggled to stand up again, but his body felt as heavy as if it was filled with lead, and he had no control over it. The chakra in his body was almost exhausted, and it was extremely difficult for him to even gather a little strength. Orochimaru walked slowly to Sarutobi Hiruzen and looked down at him with a look of triumph and contempt on his face. Teacher, it's over. You are old after all. This era no longer belongs to you. He stretched out his hand, ready to end Sarutobi Hiruzen's life once and for all, and then take away the compensation in his arms. Sarutobi Hiruzen's vision was a little blurry. He could see Orochimaru's face twisted with pride and his golden snake eyes flashing with greed. He knew that he might not be able to hold on for much longer. At this moment he subconsciously touched the hard object in his arms, the small box containing the mysterious green beans. An extremely bold, even crazy idea flashed through his mind like lightning. Since this Gohan Buu can easily eat the souls of the first generation and second Hokage, will the compensation it leaves behind also possess some kind of extraordinary power? In this situation we have to give it our all. Sarutobi Hiruzen used up his last bit of strength, and with difficulty and trembling he took out the simple little box from his arms. His movements were very slow, and every movement involved the wounds all over his body, bringing heart-wrenching pain. When Orochimaru saw Sarutobi Hiruzen's move, his brows slightly furrowed and a trace of vigilance flashed in his eyes. Could this old guy have any more cards? But he carefully sensed Sarutobi Hiruzen's chakra, which was so weak that it was almost negligible, and the injuries on his body were enough to be fatal. He couldn't think of any other means for Sarutobi Hiruzen to turn the tables. "Ha ha, teacher, are you still struggling in vain?" Orochimaru sneered, but did not stop him immediately. He wanted to see what the old man was going to do. Perhaps this was also an opportunity to learn the secret of the compensation. Sarutobi Hiruzen ignored Orochimaru's taunting, his whole mind focused on the small box in his hand. With fingers covered in blood and dust he trembled and opened the lid of the box. The emerald green bean, emitting a strange and fragrant smell, lay quietly in the center of the box as if it contained infinite vitality. There was no time to hesitate nor time to think about what the bean was and whether it would have any side effects. Sarutobi Hiruzen relied on his instinct to survive and a faint hope in that unknown power, and used up his last bit of strength to put the green bean into his mouth. The beans were not as hard or bitter as he had imagined, but rather had a strange sweetness. They almost melted in his mouth, turning into a warm, pure stream that slid down his throat into his stomach. The next moment a miracle happened. The warm current seemed to have life, instantly spreading to Sarutobi Hiruzen's limbs and bones, flowing through every corner and every cell of his body. He could clearly feel that the heart in his chest, which was almost stopping beating, suddenly beat forcefully. Then, like a dry riverbed being moistened by the spring rain again, an indescribable and powerful vitality burst out in his body. The sword wound on his left shoulder that was so deep that the bone could be seen, the broken ribs, the damaged internal organs, all the injuries both internal and external, were healing rapidly at a speed visible to the naked eye, even terrifying. His face, which was as pale as paper, regained its rosiness at an astonishing speed, and his limbs, which had been cold due to excessive blood loss, also became warm again. What made him feel even more incredible was that the chakra in his body, which had been completely depleted and dried up, was refilled rapidly and violently like a flood. In just a few breaths his chakra volume was restored to 70% to 80% of its peak period. He could even feel that his body functions, which had declined due to old age, seemed to be reactivated at this moment. His old body seemed to have become several years younger and regained its astonishing vitality. This feeling of power filling my body again, it's incredible. This incredible scene not only made Sarutobi Hiruzen himself feel as if he were in a dream, it was unbelievable, but also made Orochimaru, who was standing opposite him and ready to deliver the final blow, stare dumbfounded, his eyeballs almost bulging out of their sockets. The pride and contempt on Orochimaru's face froze instantly, replaced by an ultimate shock and incomprehensible astonishment. His golden snake eyes stared at the amazing changes in Sarutobi Hiruzen. His mouth slightly opened and he was speechless for a while. Chapter 7. I've made note of today's account. 8/137. Chapter 7. I've made note of today's account. Damn old man. Orochimaru cursed in his heart, dodging and jumping in the mudslide in a panic while constantly performing ninjutsu for defense and counterattack. But he found that Sarutobi Hiruzen's attack was getting more and more fierce, as if he had endless chakra. Enma Monkey King. Sarutobi Hiruzen seized the opportunity and once again summoned his old friend the Monkey King Enma. Roar. As the Monkey King appeared, he let out a deafening roar. He held the Vajra Rui stick in his hand and cooperated with Sarutobi Hiruzen tacitly. For a moment the shadows of the sticks were flying on the roof and the wind was whistling. Orochimaru was forced into a panic and was in danger. Orochimaru was eager to achieve success and wanted to get rid of Sarutobi Hiruzen as soon as possible and seize the mysterious Senzu Beans and box. His attacks became a little impatient and his tactics became a little chaotic. Sarutobi Hiruzen keenly grasped the flaw of Orochimaru caused by greed. Now, Sarutobi Hiruzen's eyes flashed and he communicated with the Monkey King in mind, and they both exerted their strength at the same time. Sarutobi Hiruzen swung the Vajra Rui rod in his hand at a sharp angle, hitting the blade of the Kusanagi sword that Orochimaru used to block. The huge force made Orochimaru's arm numb and his body stiffen for a moment. And Yuanmo seized this fleeting opportunity and smashed the Vajra Rui stick in his hand into Orochimaru's chest like a mountain. Puff! Orochimaru had no time to dodge and was hit hard by this powerful blow. He felt a heart-wrenching pain in his chest as if his bones were about to be smashed. A mouthful of blood spurted out and his body flew backwards like a cannonball, hitting the barrier of the four purple flame formation heavily, then rebounded and fell awkwardly into the rubble. Cough! 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 Orochimaru lay on the ground coughing violently with a lot of blood foam in every cough. He felt that his internal organs were severely shaken and the bones in his body were painful, as if they were falling apart. He lost. This time it was a real defeat. He knew that the game was over today. With Sarutobi Hiruzen in his current state and with the mysterious bean that could instantly restore injuries and chakra, he had no chance of winning. If he didn't leave now, he might really lose his life here. He is unwilling. How can he be willing? He had been planning the Konoha collapse plan for so long and it was about to succeed, but it failed because of this sudden change. More importantly, he hadn't gotten the mysterious compensation that could bring eternal life and greater power. Orochimaru struggled to get up from the ground and stared at Sarutobi Hiruzen with a look of hatred which was full of resentment, anger, and the ultimate desire for the mysterious power. He subconsciously glanced at his hands that were taken away by Sarutobi Hiruzen's Shiki Fujin. If the plot had progressed to that point, the empty sleeves and the bursts of pain from his hands being sealed would remind him of his tragic defeat all the time. Depending on the direction of the plot, there will be different descriptions of whether Orochimaru's hands are sealed. If it has not yet reached the Shiki Fujin, it may be another serious injury. He knew that as long as the Green Mountains remain, there will be no shortage of firewood. As long as he can leave here alive, he will have a chance to make a comeback and get the things he desires. Teacher Sarutobi, I'll remember what happened today. Orochimaru gritted his teeth and said, his voice full of deep hatred, we'll meet again. Before he finished speaking, he suddenly formed seals with his hands, preparing to perform the escape technique. On the rooftop, rubble was everywhere and smoke filled the air. Orochimaru finally tasted the bitter fruit of defeat under Sarutobi Hiruzen's sudden and powerful attack. He felt a sharp pain in his chest. Blood was oozing from the corners of his mouth and his whole body seemed to be falling apart in a state of embarrassment. He knew that today's Konoha collapse plan had completely failed because of this sudden change. What made him feel even more heartbroken was the two mysterious compensations that fell from the sky. The green bean in Sarutobi Hiruzen's hand that could bring people back to life and instantly restore them to their peak, and the unopened box in his hand that also emitted strange energy fluctuations were like a huge magnet attracting the greed and desire in his heart. It is assumed here that the Shiki Fujin was not used, or that Orochimaru's hands were not completely sealed for some reason, or that he had other means to temporarily restore some of his mobility. Orochimaru stared at Sarutobi Hiruzen with a cold gaze and glanced at the two empty impure world reincarnation coffins not far away and the place where the original letter fell. He knew that he had to retreat as soon as possible, otherwise once other strong men from Konoha arrived or Sarutobi Hiruzen swallowed another of those magical beans, he would have no chance of escape. However, he was absolutely unwilling to return empty-handed. The purpose of his trip, in addition to destroying Konoha and killing Sarutobi, now has a more important goal: to seize the legacy that can reveal the true power. Teacher Sarutobi, do you think this is the end? Orochimaru sneered hoarsely, his voice full of unwillingness and madness. He suddenly jumped up from the ground, ignoring his injuries, and made a feint. The Kusanagi sword in his hand turned into a sharp cold light and pierced Sarutobi Hiruzen's face. Sarutobi Hiruzen's eyes focused and he immediately swung the Vajra Rui rod to block. Although he had recovered his strength with the help of Senzu Beans, Orochimaru was a cage-level strongman after all, and his explosive power should not be underestimated. Just when Sarutobi Hiruzen was concentrating on dealing with Orochimaru's seemingly desperate attack, Orochimaru's body twisted strangely in midair like a slippery loach, and at an astonishingly fast speed he gave up attacking Sarutobi and rushed to the place where his own letter and box had fallen before. His goal from the beginning was not to fight Sarutobi to the death, but to snatch the compensation that belonged to him. Don't even think about it. Sarutobi Hiruzen reacted immediately, shouted angrily, and swept out with the diamond stick, trying to stop Orochimaru. But Orochimaru was too fast, and his desire for compensation had reached the ultimate. He stretched out his pale and slender hand and grabbed the letter, emitting a cold aura, and the box made of the same material. Then his eyes swept towards the place where Sarutobi Hiruzen had dropped the letter like a lion majesty. In the fierce battle, the letter in Sarutobi Hiruzen's arms, which contained the bad news about the first generation and second Hokage, accidentally slipped out and fell into the rubble not far away. Chapter 8: How is this possible? 9/137. Chapter 8: How is this possible? Orochimaru's eyes were filled with greed. He stretched out his hand again without hesitation, trying to snatch the letter as well. He had a strong intuition that the two letters and the two boxes must have some connection with each other. If he could get them at the same time, perhaps he could unlock a bigger secret. However, how could Sarutobi Hiruzen let him succeed so easily? Stay here! Sarutobi Hiruzen shouted and desperately urged his chakra. The Vajra Rui stick smashed into Orochimaru's outstretched arm with the force of thunder. Orochimaru felt the sharp wind and knew that if he insisted on snatching the letter, his arm would be severely injured. A trace of reluctance and ruthlessness flashed in his eyes, but he wisely chose to give up in the end. He leaned back as if he had no bones and narrowly avoided the heavy blow of the Vajra Rui stick. HMPH. Orochimaru snorted coldly. He knew that he couldn't stay here any longer. The longer he delayed, the more dangerous it would be. 4 of you lift the barrier and retreat. Orochimaru gave the order to the 4 Otonin who were maintaining the 4 purple flame formation outside the barrier. His voice was a little hoarse and sharp due to his injuries and anger. Jirobo Kitamaru, Sakan Uken and Tayuya, who were maintaining the 4 purple flame formation, had already been frightened by the long battle inside the barrier and the 2 sudden terrifying chakra fluctuations. Upon hearing Orochimaru's order, they immediately formed seals with their hands and lifted the barrier, burning with purple flames. The moment the 4 purple flame formation disappeared, the noise and fighting from the outside world surged in like a tide. Orochimaru took a last deep look at Sarutobi Hiruzen, his eyes lingering on the bulging area in his arms where there was obviously a compensation hidden. His eyes were full of deep remembrance and undisguised possessiveness. Teacher Sarutobi. Orochimaru's voice was hoarse and cold like a lion majesty's letter. I, Orochimaru, will remember everything today. His gaze turned to the two empty coffins and the place where the original letter appeared, and his voice was filled with an indescribable complex emotion. Gohan Buu, and these things he left behind. Sooner or later I will find out what is going on. After saying that, he no longer hesitated, and under the cover of several sound ninja elites his figure quickly blended into the smoke and chaos of the battlefield like a ghost and fled hastily towards the outskirts of Konoha village. With the lifting of the four purple flame formation, the Konoha shinobi who had been blocked outside were finally able to approach the rooftop battlefield. Kakashi, Gyasuma, Hong and other Jonin led the way. When they saw the third Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen was safe and sound, even energetic with almost no obvious scars on his body, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. They had felt the desperate chakra fluctuations outside the barrier before, and the two more terrifying and unfamiliar auras later, and they all thought that the third Hokage was in danger. "Hokage, are you okay?" Kakashi hurried forward and supported Sarutobi Hiruzen, his tone full of concern. "I'm fine." Sarutobi Hiruzen waved his hand. Although his face looked rosy due to the Senzu Beans, his brows were filled with deep fatigue and solemnity. He glanced at the messy battlefield around him and the Konoha shinobi who died in the battle, and his heart was filled with grief. Then when Sarutobi Hiruzen told the core Jonin present the earth-shattering news that the souls of the first Hokage and the second Hokage were taken away by an unknown existence called Gohan Buu, and the impure world reincarnation failed, everyone was like being struck by thunder from the sky, and they stood there in a moment with expressions of disbelief and horror on their faces. The souls of Shodai and Nadaime were taken away. How is this possible? This news was more shocking than the invasion of Konoha or the defection of Orochimaru, and it subverted their cognition even more. "Hokage-sama, is this true?" Asuma's voice was trembling, he couldn't believe what he heard. Sarutobi Hiruzen nodded heavily, his eyes filled with sadness and helplessness. "It is absolutely true. Orochimaru's impure world reincarnation summoned only 2 empty coffins and 2 letters, from that Gohan Buu." He did not elaborate on the contents of the letter, nor did he explain the matter of the magical bean and the scroll. This matter was too important and involved too many strange things to be leaked easily. After a brief moment of shock, Sarutobi Hiruzen immediately regained his calm and decisiveness as a Hokage. His old but powerful voice rang out on the rooftop with unquestionable majesty. "Everyone, now is not the time to be shocked. Although Orochimaru has retreated, the Sound Shinobi who invaded Konoha and the deceived Sand Shinobi are still wreaking havoc in the village. Organize people immediately and completely eliminate all invading enemies. Make sure to minimize the losses." "Yes." The Jonin present immediately took the order, suppressed the waves of panic in their hearts, and quickly devoted themselves to commanding the battle and clearing out the enemy. Then Sarutobi Hiruzen gave a second order to several Anbu members around him with a more stern tone. "From now on, all information about the name Gohan Buu, as well as any information related to letters from another world, mysterious beans and scrolls, will be blocked at the highest level. This matter is top secret, and it is strictly forbidden to leak a single word to any irrelevant personnel. Anyone who violates this order will be charged with treason." He knew very well that once this secret was leaked it would cause a huge uproar. Not only would the ninja world be in a great panic, thinking that even the legendary first generation and second Hokage would not be spared, but more importantly, once the mysterious beans that could bring people back to life and instantly restore their strength, as well as the scroll that recorded the unknown energy system, were known to the outside world, they would inevitably attract the crazy covetousness of countless ambitious people and forces. By then Konoha would never have peace. "Anbu, listen up." Sarutobi Hiruzen's eyes swept over several Anbu with stern expressions. "Closely monitor all those who may have come into contact with this matter, including everyone present. If there is any unusual movement, kill them without mercy." "Yes." Anbu members responded in unison, their voices filled with a murderous aura. Finally Sarutobi Hiruzen looked at Kakashi, his eyes full of trust and expectation. "Kakashi, I order you to immediately set up a special investigation team. You will be fully responsible for secretly investigating the source of the 2 letters and all clues about that Gohan Buu. You must find out who this person is and what his purpose is." "Yes, Hokage." Kakashi nodded solemnly. He knew that the burden on his shoulders was extremely heavy. The difficulty and importance of this mission even exceeded any S-level mission he had ever carried out. Under Sarutobi Hiruzen's vigorous and resolute actions, the entire Konoha village was still filled with the smoke of war, but all instructions were delivered in an orderly manner. The battle to eliminate the invaders was fierce in various areas, and the shocking secret of Gohan Buu was blocked by layers of strict prohibitions. Chapter 9 Torture Techniques 10-137. Chapter 9 Torture Techniques. Hatake Kakashi, a genius jonin known for his calmness and wisdom, did not dare to neglect the matter after receiving the secret order from Sarutobi Hiruzen. He was fully aware of the importance of the matter and the huge risks involved. He immediately secretly summoned the elite forces of Konoha Anbu and several core members of the torture department, including Morino Ibiki, who was famous for his ruthlessness and superb torture skills, and Mitarashi Anko, who was a grandmaster of snake ninjutsu and tracking and had a bold and unrestrained personality. A secret investigation team composed of top ninjas was quietly established in the most secret base of Konoha village. They have only one mission: to find out the truth about Gohan Buu at all costs. The first task of the team was to analyze the two mysterious letters and the two boxes that appeared out of thin air. Sarutobi Hiruzen handed over the letter and box he received, as well as some traces of the battle left by Orochimaru if he dropped any debris related to the material of the letter in his haste to Kakashi's team. The letter was made of a very special material, neither gold nor paper, neither wood nor stone. It felt strangely warm and tough when touched. The research team of Konoha tried every possible means, whether it was burning, soaking in water, or cutting with a sharp blade, but they were unable to cause any damage to it, let alone analyze its specific composition. This material seemed to be a known substance that did not belong to this world. The strange characters on the letters, twisting and swirling like ancient totems, have left all researchers helpless. They do not belong to any known language system in the ninja world. Ancient runes and dialects of various countries have nothing to do with these characters. The only way to interpret them seems to be like Sarutobi Hiruzen and Orochimaru, who will directly reflect the contents of the characters in their minds the moment they stare at them. But this way of interpretation obviously cannot be systematically studied and deciphered. Kakashi tried to let a perceptive ninja with strong mental power stare at the replica of the letter, the shape of the text engraved with special ink, but the ninja gained nothing except dizziness, and his mental power was repelled by some invisible force. Obviously, this direct information transmission seems to be related to the letter itself and some specific conditions. As for the two boxes that appeared out of thin air, they were made of the same material as the letters and were also impossible to analyze. The principle of their appearance was beyond the scope of ninjutsu and was more like the application of some higher-level spatial law. Meanwhile, Morino Ibiki was in charge of interrogating the captured Otoninas in the battle, hoping to get some information about Gohan Buu from these Orochimaru's subordinates, or at least whether Orochimaru had encountered any unusual situations while researching impure world reincarnation. However, the results of the torture were disappointing. Most of the captured Otonin were just low-level combatants under Orochimaru, and they knew nothing about many of Orochimaru's core research and plans. They only knew that Orochimaru was preparing for impure world reincarnation, but they had never heard of the first generation and second Hokage being summoned and the empty coffins and mysterious letters that would appear in the end. They were completely confused. Ibiki used all kinds of torture techniques, even some secret techniques that would cause great mental pressure, but judging from the reactions of the Otonin, they really knew nothing about it. They showed the same unfamiliarity and confusion as the Konoha shinobi about the name, Gohan Buu. Apparently Orochimaru did not tell his subordinates anything about Gohan Buu and the mysterious letter. This is probably just a secret between Orochimaru and that unknown being. Mitarashi Anko used her familiarity with snakes and her years of experience in tracking Orochimaru to try to analyze some clues from the traces left by Orochimaru during his retreat. However, Orochimaru's escape methods were always strange and unpredictable, and coupled with the chaos of the battlefield, he left very few effective clues. Although Anko found some special snake venom and chakra residues used by Orochimaru, these had no direct relationship with Gohan Buu. Kakashi focused his work on reading Konoha's secret archives and ancient books. He carefully wrote down the name, Gohan Buu, and the key words, food soul, and real power, revealed in the letter, and then plunged into the deepest part of the Konoha library, the secret archive room where countless taboo scrolls and ancient documents were stored. Only the Hokage and a few high-ranking officials with special permission are qualified to enter this archive room. It contains various precious materials handed down since the founding of Konoha village and even earlier periods, including some ancient legends, secrets of other worlds, and even some knowledge that is listed as taboo. Kakashi hopes to find even a trace of records related to Gohan Buu from these vast piles of old papers. He flipped through those yellowed scrolls and thick ancient books one by one, from the creation myth to the legend of the Sage of Six Paths, from the secret history of the major ninja villages to the origins of various forbidden techniques. He read almost all possible relevant documents. However, the result was nothing. The name, Go